All right, supplementary angles are two or more angles, I should say, two or more angles that add up to 180 degrees. Two or more angles that add up to 180 degrees. Under properties and facts, something to think about is that these angles are going to form a straight line. These two angles are going to form a straight line. Some people may even call this a straight angle. Now I want you to think about something. Let's say somebody was standing in this spot here and they went all the way around. How many degrees is that? 360 degrees. So if I go all the way around, I'm making a 360 degree rotation. But if I go halfway, that's where I get my 180 degrees from. 180 degrees is half the way of 360, because 360 divided by 2, I get 180. So 180 is just half of the way. So I'm just going to turn 180 degrees.
You wanted to do that on the illustrations?
No. So now for your illustration, if you have two intersecting lines, and I call this angle A here and this angle B here, those two angles would come together to make 180 degrees. Now I want you to realize that you're not always going to get your angles next to each other to be supplementary. We could have an acute angle of 45 degrees and an obtuse angle of 135 degrees like this. And 135 plus 45 gives me 180 degrees. So sometimes you have to just think, okay, if we put these two angles together, will they give me 180? And if they do, they're supplementary. All right? So now looking at the example, angles A and B are supplementary. The measurement of angle A is 40 degrees. Find the measurement of angle B. So they said angles A and B are supplementary, so angles A and B are going to add to give you what? 180. So A plus B is equal to 180 degrees. I'm going to replace this A here with the 40 degrees because they told me A is 40 degrees. So I'm going to replace it with 40. 40 plus B is equal to 180. Now how am I going to solve for B? Exactly. Subtract 40. And so B is equal to 140 degrees. 140 degrees. 140 degrees. So moving on to complementary. Complementary angles are two or more angles that add up to 90 degrees. So in your properties and facts, these angles make a right angle. And something to look for when you're trying to figure out if it is complementary is the box in the angle. So it looks something like this. Look for that box in the angle. If you don't see that box, it's most likely not complementary. And so for your illustrations, instead of drawing a straight line here, you'll draw two lines intersecting. And then there could be a third line. Let's see if I can make this clear. And these two angles here are going to come together to make 90 degrees. So I'm going to call the one at the top A, the one at the bottom B. So those two angles, A and B, add up to 90 degrees. I could have also done two different separate angles, 45 degrees and 45 degrees. 45 plus 45 is equal to 90. Therefore, those two angles also come together to make 90 degrees. So looking at our example that comes up next, it says angles A and B are complementary. The measurement of angle A is 23, and find the measurement of angle B. So we know that angle A and B are adding up to 90 degrees. I'm going to replace A with the given information that they gave me. A is equal to 23. So 23 plus B is 90 degrees. How am I going to solve for B?
Subtract from 90.
All right, subtract 23. And B is equal to 67 degrees. Any questions on that? Okay. Turn to the back. So vertical angles is the easiest one. So these are angles formed from two intersecting lines that are equal. So angles formed from two intersecting lines that are equal. So something to think about. If you think about scissors, actually I won't use these scissors because they're not like perfectly up and down. If I use two pencils, and let's say the pencils are representing angles. All right, we can see, so this is one line, this is another line. So this angle here, if I make this smaller, the angle at the top and the angle at the bottom are equal. The angle from the left and right are also equal. Do we see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So if I move this around, let me do that. If I move my pencils and I make the angle at the top and bottom smaller, don't they stay equal?
No.
Are we not seeing how they're always going to be equal? The top and bottom and the left and right are always equal. So no matter how we move our angles, if these are two intersecting lines, they're going to always be equal because the top and bottom change together and the left and right also change together. So two intersecting lines form two equal angles. Now these, for a property in fact, these two lines are these two angles are opposite each other. So they're opposite each other, not side by side. So we wouldn't see these angles next to each other. They would be across from each other. So angles are opposite each other. All right, so if we want to draw a picture, we could draw our two lines intersecting. Angle A and B are equal to each other. They're opposite each other and they're always equal because they're formed by two straight lines that intersect. So angles A and B are our vertical angles. The measurement of angle A is 35, find the measurement of angle B. So if we know angle A and B are equal, if angle A is 35, B is also 35 degrees. So that's the easiest one. If you notice the vertical angle, you just go ahead and make those equal. Now our last angle type is adjacent angles. So these are angles that are side by side. And so in your properties and facts, we would write that these angles share a ray. And what I mean by that, let's say we have our two lines. This line here would be a ray. So angle A and B are sharing this ray here. So they are side by side. They are next to each other. So for the illustration, we can just draw two lines. These two angles are side by side. So angle A and B are adjacent. Sometimes your angle doesn't add up to something like 90 or 180, but your angles are still adjacent next to each other. So thinking about the information from the video, they told us how some angles are labeled. So we have angle XYZ is 75 degrees. So now let's locate points X, Y, and Z so we can figure out what angle they're talking about. So we have point X here, Y, and Z. So this angle here is representing this entire, both these angles together. So both of these angles together is 75 degrees. So how am I going to solve for this missing angle? We could call it A. How am I going to solve for, if I know that both of them together is 75, how can I solve for the missing one? So 75 minus 47, and what do I get? 23 degrees. So A is equal to 23 degrees.